Welcome to the Grow Down on Soil Health, the podcast where we dig deep into sustainable farming practices that can enhance your land and your bottom line. I'm your host, Dr. Ben West, Executive Director of Farmers for Soil Health, a program established by farmers, for farmers, dedicated to improving soil health practices like planting cover crops to enhance the environment and profitability of farmers. This podcast is in partnership with the Soy Checkoff, the Pork Checkoff, and the National Corn Growers Association. Today's episode is all about farmer stewardship, sustainable supply chains, and the way Farmers for Soil Health is directly supporting producers across the country. Today, we're joined by Jack Cornell, really good friend and colleague of mine, and he's the Director of Sustainable Supply at the United Soybean Board. In his role, Jack leads USB's sustainability projects and partnerships, helping farmers improve land stewardship while maintaining profitability. Jack, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, glad to be here.
Jack, you and I have been friends for a while. I guess we met 4 or 5 years ago. I was doing some work for USB and have become good friends. I really appreciate working with you. You're one of the most innovative minds, I think, in this space right now in agriculture. But you have a habit that most people who don't work with you every day don't know. And that is every Friday, because we're usually in a Zoom call every Friday.
Yep.
Farmers for Soil Health call, and you always wear a Hawaiian shirt.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's a great conversation point. Where did that come from, and why do you do it?
Yeah, well, so I started early in my career. I worked for Monsanto in breeding technology, and one of the things they have in Hawaii is they have Aloha Friday, which was actually the precursor to the Casual Friday. So they started, it was a way for the Hawaiian government to stimulate the Hawaiian textile industry, was to get people in government to wear a Hawaiian shirt on Fridays. And eventually it evolved and changed and moved to California, and California started Casual Friday. But it was always fun to work on a farm and have all your crew members and everybody just rolling around tractors, pollinating corn with Hawaiian shirts on. So it was a lot of fun. It kind of generated some energy on a Friday and got people thinking about the weekend. So
you spent that time in Hawaii.
That's right.
Yeah. How long were you there?
I was in Hawaii for 5.5 years,
yeah.
And my role there was really to take the traits that they were developing in St. Louis and cross-pollinate those traits into all the germplasm of the world, and then quality control and test and make sure all the traits that were supposed to be getting in there got in there, and the ones that weren't got out. So it was kind of a really cool, is the bottleneck of the company, right? Essentially for all the different corn germplasm. So it was an honor and a huge responsibility to make sure that I was the last person that got to touch every individual corn before it went out into the world.
Wow. So that was a breeding program you were part of.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So where did you go from there to become the Director of Sustainable Supply for USB? How did you get into sustainability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So earlier in my career, I went to this small school called Muskegon University, and Muskegon is actually where John Glenn and Jack Hanna went. And so they have a huge conservation biology department, one of the first conservation biology departments in the country. And I didn't get a conservation biology degree, but I took a ton of classes. And then after kind of taking away a lot of that knowledge, I actually worked at a nature preserve for a while, where I did wildlife rehab and prairie restoration. I ended up getting my master's degree looking at how to control and with invasive plants and tall grass prairies. But then I finally needed a job. I needed to make some money, right?
Yeah.
You got to bring home the bacon. And so I was just looking for jobs and opportunities, and I remember a recruiter reached out to me. Is like, how would you like to work in Hawaii and do plant breeding? I was like, yeah, that sounds like I could do that.
Yeah.
So that was the opportunity. And when I got there on the farm, the uniqueness was that we took over old pineapple ground, right? And pineapples are kind of harvested kind of like potatoes, where they trench it and then they pop it up, and they use plastic to control weeds, and so they're very harsh on the soil there. And the other interesting factor too is like we think about soil being like millions of years old. Well, in Hawaii, it's like hundreds of years old, right? So it doesn't have all that structure, doesn't have the organic matter.
No layer, not layered like mainland soils.
Yeah. And so when we think about, okay, now we're going to do crop rotation, corn on corn on corn on corn, because that's what it was, a breeding program, right? All of a sudden, we started seeing our yields just tank. Right? Because, just because of disease, pressure, rotation, there was no rest periods. And so me with my background more on the ecology, how things actually fit together, understanding whole systems, not just like solely focused on yield. I was able to kind of think through and help the farm kind of transform itself into putting in grass waterways, rotational fallow, cover crops, terracing, how to manage the water on the farm. And that kind of like was like that light bulb moment in your life where you're like, oh my gosh, we got to be doing this everywhere, right? Like, and it became that opportunity because we started we saw a 54% increase in our production. We met our KPIs at a much higher rate. And so it's like, we got to, this is amazing. Using, tools and technology that are just management and things that are already out there in a corn area. We were able to really reduce the disease pressure, reduce the insect pressure, increase yields. It was like, I got to take this to the Midwest, right? Like, I got to take all these skills that I've been developing and take it to the Midwest and help farmers that are growing the world's crop to be able to have these benefits.
How long ago was that, Jack? When were you in Hawaii?
So I was back in Hawaii started in 2005, and I was there until 11.
Not that long ago, but even then, probably nobody would have called what you were doing regenerative farming.
Heck, no.
Today, that word is everywhere, but that's exactly what you were doing.
Yeah,
Treating the farm as a whole system. Yeah.
Yeah, you were just working the farm, right? You were just finding new tools and techniques. It wasn't classified as some category, right? Yeah.
So what have you done since then? So you came back to the mainland. Now work in mainstream row crop agriculture. How did you bridge that gap?
Well, so the role I took when I moved back to the Midwest was an agronomy type role, and I really liked it because it gave me the freedom to kind of really do the market development plots, understand the new germplasm that's coming out, the next gen technology on seed treatments. But it also gave me flexibility to, I had a partnership with the Illinois Department of Ag where we actually set up the first cover crop research farm in the state of Illinois. First time Monsanto, as a huge conglomerate, partnered with a state farm group, right? And we set up this cover crop research farm, and it was like, let's take it to the nines, baby. Let's do cover crops. Let's plant green. Let's reduce fertilizers. Let's figure out what relative maturity group works in planting green. And it was amazing the times where you'd have like, the random farmers that would show up and be like, they get out. It's the only time in my career where I'd have a farmer pull up, get out of their truck, come over and walk over to me and be like, what are you doing here? Right? What, you're planting a bunch of weeds here.
If it was Friday, you had on a Hawaiian shirt too.
That's true. Yeah. And so, so it's really that kind of translating some of those things became a career passion, is really translating these conservation practices, getting into the hands of farmers so that they can increase their production, have those opportunities to stay in business, and figuring out those tools and technologies that work for them.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about working with you, Jack, is you're one of those folks who just likes to get stuff done. Like you like to talk some, but also get stuff done. And you were at the very beginning point of helping develop Farmers for Soil Health. Our big program now that's working in 20 states, helping farmers adopt cover crops and giving them financial assistance, technical assistance, and then hopefully long term a marketplace to sell those environmental benefits. It's a really big idea. Tell us how it started. How did Farmers for Soil Health start? Because you were in the very first conversations about our program.
So originally, corn, soy, pork, they kind of got together and they were like, we need, it felt like everybody had their own sustainability programs, but nobody was working together. And they thought, well, if we work together, we can probably achieve more. And so what does that look like? And so when I started working on it, I made sure that this program has to pay for farmers to get over the hurdle of the cover crop seed, right? It's got to be enough payment for them to be interested to get over some of these hurdles. Then the second thing is it has to have the technical assistance. You need somebody that shows up on the farm. You cannot do this from a central hub in St. Louis and make phone calls. You need somebody who's got a pickup truck who can show up on farm and walk them through, okay, when do you buy cover crop seed? When do you take out cover crop seed? When do you need to plant your cash crop to make sure that you maximize the cover crop that is there? And so there's all these hurdles that farmers face when they change their operation. I always love the analogy of, you go to a cash crop farmer's farm and you try to tell them about cover crops. It's not like adding a new ingredient or a new burger to your menu, right? Like if they're a burger joint, you're like, okay, you're going to sell a barbecue burger now. It's actually getting them to be a pizza farm, a pizza business now, right? It's like They got different ingredients, they got to do customer base, they got new products, new menus they got to sell, and so
changes the cadence of what they do and when they do. Absolutely.
Yeah,
lots of changes.
And so the technical assistance was a core principle as well, and a program that has the farmers' backs, right, and making sure that it has their backs, and then that they're also part of it and have ability to help advise that program as well.
Yeah, so that led to this USDA grant. We were able to launch Farmers for Soil Health, about to enter our third enrollment year, and all of those things have borne out to be true. Like farmers, if you give them the technical assistance and the financial assistance, they're much more willing to adopt a new practice.
That's right.
But even with that, right now we're in a really tough farm economy. Mm-hmm. Farmers are trying to look for every penny of savings. How do you think that, affects a farmer's interest and willingness to try something new? And let's just stick to cover crops, since that's what Farmers for Soil Health is built around.
Yeah. So farmers are facing a pretty tough challenge right now, and so they're looking for these opportunities for additional profitability. And part of our program was really strengthened by partnering with state commodity groups, were the backbone of our technical assistance. So we individually reached out to every state commodity group that was in our geography that we're working in and be like, okay, what is your conservation program? How are you helping farmers? And then me presenting our conservation program and being like, this is how we want to help farmers. How can we work together, right? Because in the end, these groups are working for the benefit of the farmer, and we wanted to make sure that there wasn't overlap, right? We weren't duplicating work, or we weren't competing. We wanted to work in lockstep with these groups, and that was one of the huge benefits. Is obviously I represent Farmers for Soil Health, and I do think it's a really truly great program. But I recognize that farmers not all fit into one category. They have a diverse operation. What I wanted to do is make sure that those farmers have unique opportunities and access to kind of all the different programs available to them, right? So if I was walking on an Illinois farm, I want them to know all the different Illinois programs that they could apply for to help them on the farm with technical assistance and profitability. And the best people to do that is the people that work in Illinois. And I wanted to make sure that if we were to pay for technical assistance, I still wanted it to say, I told them, I don't care if you sell my program first, but what I do want is that technical assistance is helping farmers and navigating the system, right? And navigating this commodity space in this conservation space to help them maximize their operation.
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed since I've gotten involved with Farmers for Soil Health as part of the leadership team, talking to other folks who are involved with other programs, seems like an air of competition crept into the room. But my stance has always been, this isn't about competition. This is about helping farmers be more sustainable and more profitable. And what we need to do is not convince them that our program is the right one, but help them to understand how Farmers for Soil Health, what features and benefits it has compared to others, and then farmers make the decision for them, because Farmers for Soil Health is not the right program for every acre, for every farmer in all of our states. But we do have some things that make us a little different than some of the others, and I think it's helpful for farmers to know what's the benefits and protocols for each of the programs. Talk a little bit in your mind about what makes Farmers for Soil Health different than the other similar programs that are out there, and there's a lot.
Yeah, so the first thing is that our program is run by the national checkoffs and the national corn growers, right? So there's the soy checkoff, the pork checkoff, and the national corn growers. And so if I was to go to a farmer and be like, look, you might get a better dollar offer from some of these other organizations, right? They might sell you a bag of goods, but when it shows up, it might not be the same thing. Our reputation as a checkoff is more valuable to the farmer than us trying to make money, right? We don't make any money off this whole entire project. Actually, we pay into this system, right? And so it's an opportunity for, as farmers are kind of nervous about this space, about, okay, this cost share, cover crop programs, like I don't maybe necessarily want to get involved with it because I don't know these organizations. This is an opportunity for you can know that this organization has your back, right? Like, we're going to maximize the technical assistance, the federal funding that we have is going, every cent is going to be spent towards progressing farmers to help them navigate this space to maximize conservation and profitability on their farms. Where, some of these other carbon programs, right? They have kind of black boxes sometimes. There's a boogeyman hiding behind some of those spaces where you don't know who you're actually dealing with, right? Or who they're selling those carbon credits to, or how is it going to end, right? With us, at least that there's no boogeyman, right? Like, we're here to just really to supply service and get you going in a way that we think is going to help you maximize those things.
Yeah, and we say Farmers for Soil Health is built by farmers for farmers, and that's not just a talking point. That actually is the way
100%
the
true.
program originated and is led. The three commodity groups who are all led by farmer boards, lead this program. So while we may not get everything right, and we are all still learning every day.
Yep.
We literally start with the farmer voice first, and I think that makes us pretty unusual among all the programs that are out there.
And I will say, so if you think about other carbon programs, I guarantee you no one else has a farmer advisory group like we do.
That's exactly right. That's right. And let's talk about carbon, since you brought it up.
Okay.
It seems like this is the hot topic. And I was talking to someone recently. We were talking about this, and they made the observation, man, wouldn't it be nice if we could, as a community, both farmers, commodity groups like yours, the food industry, the grain aggregators, really wrap our heads around the idea that all of these conservation practices provide a much more holistic suite of benefits than just carbon. Carbon's great. Obviously, carbon's, playing a role in our climate right now, and there's lots of discussion about that, lots of companies interested in carbon outcomes. But what about soil erosion and water quality and wildlife habitat? What do you think, Jack? What's it going to take for us as an entire community sector to wrap our heads around a more holistic view of these practices and of farming in general?
Yeah, I mean, the carbon space is and the reason why it's so kind of nuts is that if you I used to do a lot of soil sampling, right? And the issue is soil sampling depends on the time of year you sample. It depends on the soil moisture. It depends on, like if the field flooded, right, you would lose a lot of different nutrients, right? Yeah. And the thing about soil sampling is you could say, I'm going to sample on April 1st every year for 5 years, But in reality, what's happening is, so you sample April 1st one year, and then all of a sudden you get behind the schedule, and then you sample May the 17th, and then and the dynamics within the soil, we don't fully understand, right? There's just, it's so complex, right? We can kind of sample a ton and finally start honing in on things, but for you to track down what a single carbon number is within soil sampling is beyond complex, right? And you'll never get the same answer.
Yeah, and we are so technologically advanced. On one hand, we're so technologically advanced, not just in agriculture, but in everything. But yet, on the other hand, things like soil science, we still are just scratching the surface.
Yep.
When I was in college 30 years ago and took 3 or 4 soil science classes, they were all pretty much about the physical and chemical properties of soil.
Yep.
Basically zero mention of biological properties of soil. And now that's where a lot of some of the cutting edge research in soil science is going. And it just seems like we still have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Over in the coming decades about soil science, how to promote and sustain healthy soil, and how that relates to farm operations and farm profitability.
Well, even thinking through like what soil lab you send it to. Like if you were to send the same soil sample to 7 different labs, you'll get 7 different answers, right? So the standardization is very poor on kind of all the different soil labs as well. So there's lots of issues in that space as well, and so. That's why for us, when we think about Farmers for Soil Health, is really we want to focus on the practice-based model, right? So as farmers do new practices, let's pay them for that. And what you're going to see as a farmer is you're going to get a ton of agronomic benefits, right? You're going to be able to plant sooner, right? You will be able to, the cover crops will help dry out the soils in the spring, so you can plant sooner, right? And if you can plant sooner, it actually opens up your yield possibilities, right? That planting window changes. And the other thing, if you think about too, especially in soybeans, is if you open that planting window up, you actually get greater root depth, right? So you're going to increase the soil penetration, the aggregate stability, water holding capacity. But on soybeans in particular, you're going to get more nodulation. More nodulations means you have more nitrogen fixing. You're going to have probably a greater yields. You're going to have more nitrogen potentially carry over into the corn cycle. And so like all these agronomic benefits, they all start stacking up, right? And thinking about how do we just kind of, maybe showcase on the practice base, but then along the way, we're going to work on that science piece and figuring out on that science piece, maybe it's carbon, maybe it's water, maybe it's biodiversity, but work with us as we transition to this road, because we're obviously interested in figuring out pathways for farmers to get paid for some of those biological metrics, right? But I don't think there's not a silver bullet right now. And so farmers participating, at least they're at the forefront of getting some of the benefits of the technical assistance, the agronomic benefits, and the cost share as we kind of progress down this road.
Yeah, all of it is so complex. And as we've talked about this before, complexity is a barrier to decision making. When there's so much stuff to consider, it can be tough to make decisions if you're a farmer. I was at a ag sustainability conference last year, and one of the folks there was going around kind of polling people. And basically the presupposition to the question was, look, this is a really complex thing. It's really hard for farmers to manage a system with these many variables. If you were going to pick one metric that was easy to measure, that we can measure, that would help farmers understand the health of their soil, what would that one metric be? Do you have one? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Oh, that's a really good question. I would think that residue management is a big one. Understanding, because being able, the plantability in the spring is huge, right? And because obviously that's, being able to get in the field is obviously where you're going to maximize your yield potential, right? And getting in there. And so helping farmers understand, as you kind of work through the system, maybe at the early stages of a cover crop, you're going to have these heavy residue systems because the soil hasn't built up enough of the microbial community to really eat at this residue. But as you progress and over time, you're going to start seeing that residue and increase that plantability, because a lot of the guys I've run into that are true cover croppers, they love it. It's more accidental, right? Where they're like, I have to plant right now and my cover crop is still alive. I guess I have to plant green. So they go in and plant green, and then then they terminate after they plant, and then afterwards they're like, wow, that was a lot easier than trying to plant into heavy residue. And so it's like working with farmers and understanding some of these like agronomic benefits is really a light bulb moment for them.
So residue could be your answer. Probably the most common answer that people gave there was percent organic matter. Mm-hmm. Like if you knew nothing else about your soil, that tells you a lot.
Yep.
It tells you a lot about the cropping system, tillage system. It tells you a lot. Okay, so as we're wrapping up here, Jack, this podcast is sponsored by Farmers for Soil Health. We've been around a couple years, but farmers are still learning about it. As we close out here, if you could just like an elevator pitch, if you met a farmer and you got 1 minute to tell him or her about Farmers for Soil Health, what they need to know, what would you tell them?
Yeah, well, so first off, there's a cost share program for farmers. So they have the opportunity to make money based off of changing practices. The second thing is there's going to be somebody that assists you as you go through this change, right? They're going to help you navigate, go online, talk you through the steps that you need to do, help you collect the right documents that you need to trigger that information. And pretty much it's pretty hands-free, right? Because how we verify that you did what you said you did was we have there's satellites going over your field all the time, taking pictures. And so as soon as those satellites pick up that you did cover crops, it essentially triggers that payment, right? And the other thing I talk about is that there's a bank account with Farmers for Soil Health and the USDA bank account, right? It's not a hidden amount of money controlled by some corporate entity, right? It's just sitting there waiting for farmers to trigger the steps for that payment to get to you, right? So it's a really cool opportunity for farmers to participate that, and you have the back of farmer organizations making sure that this program is the best for them, right? There's no hidden person behind it pulling the strings, right? This is a farmer-focused, farmer-driven initiative that's really going to help benefit farmers.
Awesome. Well, Jack, I really appreciate you joining. I've been looking forward to you joining this podcast since we started it, both because you helped start Farmers for Soil Health, and I've developed such an appreciation for you and your work. So really appreciate you joining.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Well, if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and check out our website at farmersforsoilhealth.com, where you can find out more about our program and how you can get involved. Stay tuned here for more insights on sustainable farming practices. Until next time.